synthesizers in apeMatrix. You can call me Daveypoo, vocal music and Soloist.
What's shaking, everybody? How you doing? Today we are looking at Vocal Soloist by 4Pockets. That's right. And that intro was done with this crazy synthesizer that I've built in apeMatrix, which is something I've been wanting to do for a while. So, you ready to go? Fasten your seatbelts, kids, because here we go. We're in apeMatrix, as I already said. You know, when these devs and I talk and they give me these apps and I do these videos, I'm always looking for a way to do something different than everybody else. And I don't always succeed. Sometimes I just end up doing a tutorial because I run out of ideas. But I'm always trying to find a new angle, a way to do something different than everybody else. Because why am I doing another video if everybody else has already done the same video? That's just kind of silly. So I was struggling with these two apps that I had recently, and with Vocal Soloist especially, because it's a vocal harmonizer, and there it's really cool and it works really well. But I mean, that's great and all, but that has nothing to do with how good my video is. I can talk about how awesome it is, but everybody else has already talked about how awesome it is, so what else can we do with it? So I put my thinking cap on and I got to thinking. I realized that one of the things that I liked most about this particular vocal effect was it's a harmonizer. It also has an auto-tune feature, so it's reading the pitch of the incoming signal and it's trying to map it to a MIDI signal, and you can choose how hard it or soft it is with the mapping, and then you can change the pitch. So I thought, well, why don't I make a synthesizer out of it? The problem is while it's playable, you can use a MIDI keyboard and play it, it's monophonic because we're talking about a vocal harmonizer here. So how do I get it to be a polyphonic synth? And what's the advantage there? Wouldn't I just use a vocoder? I mean, isn't that the same thing? Well, yes and no. I chose to do it with harmonizer because it's actually pitch shifting my own voice and mapping them to individual notes rather than synthesizing them. A vocoder works a little bit differently, right? I'm going to chump the technical description of this, but in basic terms, it sort of reads the envelope of the incoming signal, which is your voice in this instance, and then it takes the envelope of the synths that you're playing, and it uses the envelope of your voice and lays it over the synthesizer, and that's why it sounds like the synthesizer's talking, because it's using the envelope that's being created by the sounds that are coming out of your mouth. It works a little differently. It's like you're speaking through a synthesizer with a vocoder, but with vocal harmonizer, it's taking the actual words and pitches coming out of my mouth and remapping them. So I've done this in a couple of different ways, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways of going about it. On this first page, Matrix 1, you'll see that I've alternated sampler instances with harmonizer. I have 4 instances of harmonizer from the top down, and I have 4 instances of sampler. So this way I can use a pre-recorded sound, or I can use my live voice, and I'll go through that as well. So in the sampler here, I'm choosing a sample of my own voice. I chose track 5 here. Okay, I'm going to take that same sample and I'm going to load that same sample into each of these. Track 5, right? Yep. And we go over here, and we open it up and we go to track 5. And this was just me babbling into a loopy to just get something with some rhythm. Track 5. So this is what you're hearing from just the sample. Okay, so that's just the sample. Okay, now I've routed that sampler into the first instance of Soloist, and then underneath that, this instance of sampler here goes through the next instance of Soloist and all the way through. And then all of the versions of Soloist are all sending out to output B. Output B routes to Matrix 2. B is coming in, it's going into this gain and pan, so that way I have a little easier control over the level, and I'm sending it out to shimmer effects to just give it some reverb. But let's just put it through the output here so that we can hear what's going on. Okay, so I've got all these instances of harmonizer running. Well, now what? So let's go back to Matrix 1 here. On the desk in front of me, I've got an Arturia Minilab keyboard controller, and I'm running that into Polyphemus. Okay, Polyphemus is an app here, and what it does is it takes an incoming polyphonic MIDI signal, polyphonic meaning many notes, so I'm going to say a 4-note chord here, and I'm sending each one of those MIDI notes to a different MIDI destination. In this case, each destination is the instance of Vocal Soloist. So, because Vocal Soloist is monophonic, okay, each one can only accept one incoming note. So Polyphemus takes that polyphonic chord that I play and it routes all the notes to the individual instances of Vocal Soloist so I can generate a 4-note chord. Pretty neat. Let me show you how I've got the MIDI routing here, though, because it's kind of complex. So we go to the MIDI matrix here. Polyphemus is sending MIDI data out to each of the 4 instances of Vocal Soloist here. You also have to make sure that you turn it on over here. This little doohickey, the red thing, I'm going to point right at it. You got to make sure that that's on. It on is red. Okay, that's very, very important. Then, when we got to click on these little funnels here because we have to sort the MIDI outputs coming out of Polyphemus so that we know which goes where. So if we go to sources here, you'll see that Polyphemus has multiple MIDI outs. It has a through, which is just all 4 notes, and then you can route up to 8 different places. So with this first instance of Vocal Soloist here is only accepting the output from Polyphemus output channel 1. And then if we keep going over here, this one is Polyphemus 2. Close. And then here, sources, Polyphemus 3. Okay, so you get the idea. So I have taken each of those and I've made sure that the output of Polyphemus is going to the individual instances of Vocal Soloist. Now, the other thing you have to remember is that on Vocal Soloist, when you pop it open, you get this page. If you want to get to the MIDI information, you have to slide up and then down here, MIDI keys. That's what you want to choose. That's going to tell it to take the MIDI note input from a MIDI keyboard, and that's where you're going to map your vocals to. Everything should work. So I'm going to play a C dominant 7 here. I'm going to make sure that my gain pan is in the output. I'm going to hit the chord, and we're going to press play, and hopefully all of the individual samplers will play and play this as a chord. Change chords. Now you can hear, when I don't press a 4-note chord, you actually hear the original sample playing through because there's not enough MIDI notes for as many instances of vocal sampler. That's a 3-note chord. Here's a 4-note chord. Hear how you don't hear it anymore? Okay, so that's with the sampler. We're all tired of hearing me go beep-a-dee-ba-da-ba-da-boop-a-dee-bop. So we'll switch back over here for a second. So that's what I done on the first page here, and that's how I routed everything and got it to work. So if you have a sample and you want to play around with it, now you could set up a sequencer and you could have the sequencer playing the keys so that it mapped it to individual chords, and you could set up a whole progression. I have done that also. But you see the DSP running here. If I hit play again on this, I mean, I'm running at 19%, 20% on my 2017 iPad Pro 12-inch. That's not a lot for... Let's stop this. For how much I'm running, like how many instances of things I'm running, they all run very, very light. So if we do that through Shimmer, then we get this. So, you can hear that you really have to be deliberate with your presses here. This isn't a perfect system. Polyphemus doesn't always recognize the notes when you don't hit them in time. It sends them into different places. You can set how it sends them. Okay, so if you do voice allocation mode here, I can send, keep the lowest note, keep the highest note, just randomly send them to the 4 different places, random but not the same places the previous time, the next free, or round robin, it cycles through. You have to dial this into taste and to the performance, as always. You just got to figure it out, make it work. That's how you do it with a sampler. This is how we got it set up with all the different vocal samples in case you want to use a sample. But how do you do it live? Let's flip to Matrix 3 and see what I done. And I got this microphone set up so that I have a live input. I'm running limiter here as always because limiter just boosts up the signal from the microphone coming in. I have my Behringer UMC 404 HD on the desk. The output from that is quite low. It's the one downside of that thing, so I have to use the limiter to make sure that I kick up the incoming signal high enough to have it make sense and be able to be dealt with by the other amps. Below that, I have a gain and pan, and I'll explain that in a second. Then I have an instance of Lorentz, and I have an instance of Daveypoo. So I have a few things set up here. I set up a vocoder because I wanted to show you guys what the difference in sound was between just remapping my own voice versus vocoding it. But I have the limiter running into the gain pan, and I have it also running out to output A. Now if I go back here, output A, if I go to Matrix 1, output A is sending to vocal soloist. So that means the microphone here, coming from limiter, is going out to vocal soloist here and going through that same signal path. Separately, it's going to this gain and pan, which I have here in the mixer. I have the gain and pan panned all the way to one side, and I have the Lorentz synth here panned to the other side, because Der Voco is set up in such a way that you can use your own synthesizer to whatever synthesizer you want as your vocoder. So that's why I like Der Voco. I can use any of the synths I have on here as a vocoder. It's brilliant stuff. You have to have it set to input mode. You have to have the synth input panned all the way to the left and the mic input panned all the way to the right. So I have that set up also. But we're getting off topic here. Let's go back, and we have my voice set through, going through all the vocal soloist instances, and it's coming out
just like this. So here I am vocoding. Well, here I am harmonizing my own voice.
It's a 4-part harmony.
And I have to hit the chord before I speak. It makes for a smoother transition. But you can transition through all sorts of beautiful chords.
And it actually sounds
Really interesting here when you do it this way.
So, if I put a little shimmer on that.
Now it sounds totally different with a little bit of reverb on the tail. It makes it sound a whole lot nicer when you want to listen for the way that things sound. And now I'm just kind of rambling because I really don't know what to say.
So, that's the first step. That's me pitch shifting my voice and making chords out of it and making my own synth. Now you can run that through whatever kind of effects and whatever else you want. But I basically built a vocal synthesizer. Like, I'm synthesizing with my voice here. And I can go even crazier, and I can run it through all sorts of other things and distort it and crush it and do whatever. Now, if I want to engage the vocoder. Now, let's go back here. So I'm running the analyzer here in the bottom just for fun, just so you guys can see something on the screen, but has no bearing on the sound. It's not affecting anything at all. So I gotta take these out here. Okay. Now we're just gonna hear the vocoder.
This is just the vocoder. Now you can hear how the sound is different. It actually sounds like a synthesizer rather than sounding like my own voice, but I still get a similar effect because I'm getting the pitch mapped to different MIDI notes, but rather than it actually being my voice and just being pitch shifted, and now I can also play chords that are not only 4-note chords, because it doesn't matter, it's a vocoder, it's running through its own signal chain, but I can also run it through shimmer, and I can get this effect, and it sounds really beautiful. But the best part is when I add all of them in together. And then I get this really lush sound that's partially my own voice and partially a synthesized voice. But I can see it's being really used to interesting effect.
So that's what I done come up with for you guys. It's a pretty complex setup, but you get a really rich, full sound, especially when you blend the vocoder and your actual pitch-shifted voice. You get the diction of the individual words and syllables coming through vocal soloist, because you're not actually, you're not changing the tone of your sound, you're just changing the pitch. But then you get the synthesized tone from the vocoder, which gives you that classic vocoder robot voice. And it's a really nice combination of the two. So, yeah, there you go. That's what I got for you. I hope you guys like this video. I hope it all kind of makes sense. Vocal Harmonizer, Vocal Soloist, this is a really incredible app. and it can really do a lot more than just being a straight up harmonizer. The auto-tune feature is really amazing. It has some built-in effects. It has a doubler, it has a reverb, the doubler giving it a kind of a chorus effect. So there's a lot more that you can do with it. This is just my own wacky interpretation of trying to push it outside the norm, trying to do something a little strange. But hey, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and please like the channel and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. And thanks so much to 4Pockets. Your app suite is incredible. I don't know any other developer that has such a robust suite of effects and apps as you do. I think it's totally incredible. I'm really looking forward to checking out some of the other things you got, and they just came out with Digistix, a new drum app, which I think I'm going to pick up pretty soon. So incredible stuff. Please go check out 4Pockets. They are amazing. Please run down the street telling everybody that Daveypoo is the greatest guy in the world. Put a billboard up on your roof. Put, an air horn outside your house and a big bullhorn, and make sure that everybody knows, because, man, I need more subscribers and I need more people to like me, because I'm just feeling so lonely over here. And
I will see you guys next freaking time, baby.